San Marcos, and so the Texas Water Safari was always something that was around. I had friends of friends who maybe did it. I remember watching it when I was younger, at Rio Vista. I've always loved the river, and it's always intrigued me. And then a couple years ago, I met another gal, and she really wanted to do the water safari, and I was kind of like, I've always thought about it. And then we started talking, and that's how our first team formed. So last year was the first year I did the water safari. We trained as much as we thought we could and should. We tried to ask all of the veterans the questions that we thought we should be asking. But going into it last year, there was just a bunch of nerves just because it's so unknown. It's this really huge, long race. I had no idea how my body was gonna react, my mind, the sleep deprivation, a bunch of nerves and anxiety kind of leading up to that starting gun. And then it was a good race until the end. There is a series of the river that has these log jams that are known, and they're kind of perpetually there year to year. And you can either portage your boat around those log jams, or you can choose to kind of go off on the right-hand side of the river where these cuts through a swampy marsh. We took a wrong turn at some point. It was the middle of the night. The path that we had thought we were gonna go was not passable, and we got lost and essentially had to spend the night, wait for morning to come, not make the next checkpoint, and someone from the Texas Water Safari actually had to come find us, and we followed them out of the labyrinth. So it was not quite to the end, a near finish. It was after the fact that it just felt so close, and everyone kept being like, y'all basically did it, you finished in my book. And I'm like, no, but we didn't. It felt like a good race, and I want to be proud of that race and the experience I had, but it was so much of a unfinished feeling. So kind of immediately I was like, this isn't over. So once I reached that point of, okay, I can't not do it, it was like, all right, we're in. Let's start the training, let's start the planning. Come March, we had a training plan mapped out, and so every weekend we just, did a stretch of the river or 2 stretches of the river. A lot of just Excel sheets with what we need, food, gear. We had to build out different things on the boat to make it work for us. There's a lot of preparation, I think, that is a lot bigger than even doing the race. Each team is required to have at least 1 team captain. We had 2, and so on paper, they have to check us in and check us out of each of those checkpoints. But most importantly, they provide all of our food and water and ice. They also are doing reconnaissance and getting information and keeping our spirits up. It means so much to come up to a checkpoint or bridge and see someone It brings so much energy. Any little thing of energy goes a long way, because it's a very long race and easy to lose that spirit. Overall, this year's race went really well. We know what we're doing, we're good together, we are planning, we're making it happen. So really, we kind of executed the race as planned. Each section we just took one at a time. It was very much like, okay, now the next thing we get to see is Staples. The next thing we get to see is Stairtown Bridge. Let's just get there. It's easy to almost be like, okay, but then we're gonna hit the cuts in the nighttime, or the bay's rough, and it's like, nope, just the next thing we're doing is get to Victoria, one thing at a time. And we didn't have any crazy mishaps. We joke that we haven't yet once, flipped the boat together. We've fallen out gracefully, but the boat has stayed upright. We just kept going. We planned, we trained, and then we just did it. Coming into Victoria, it was maybe midnight-ish. It's just hard at night. It's a big, wide open river, and there's a lot of little islands, and all of a sudden you're in some current and getting pushed into trees hanging down onto the river. It's just, when the river's that wide, it's difficult to see what you're getting into. When we got in, we were not in great spirits, so that was kind of a low point. But when the sun rises, it's like a whole new feeling and energy, and it just brings joy. Just being on the river, not thinking about anything else in the world, except going forward and being in nature, it's like such an internal high, that sense of peace and like gratefulness for, what we were doing. And then I was like full of energy, and it was great for a while it lasted. There were hard times when, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, am I too hot? Dusty was like, you're kind of acting weird. And I was like, wait, am I sane? But there was not a time when I wanted to give up. It was never on my mind. It was never a thought I even entertained. There were times where I was like, man, this is hard. On that second day, I was like, it's hot. My body is hurting. But as soon as, take a little break and relax, and then you just keep on keeping on. I've done some other sort of mental endurance things, and I've, made it through those. So I think just confidence in myself and knowing that you can always get through it. It felt really, really good to see the finish line in the distance and cross it. It took us 94 hours and 33 minutes, which is not fast by any means, but we have 100 hours to complete it. So we had plenty of time to spare.
This important moment is brought to you by the Texas Water Safari History, the first women's novice team in the history of the safari! Woo! Oh my gosh, y'all, this is a historical moment.
I've been sort of manifesting this moment for 2 years, and it just felt so good. It felt like it really did complete what I had started. I feel a little bit more grounded, now that I finished it. I can't imagine a second year without finishing, which I know how easy it is to not finish. So it felt like we put the hard work in and we did it, and it felt so, so good. It's kind of an unmatchable feeling in a sense to cross that finish line. So this year was the first year of that women's novice class that we won. We were the only entrants, but first place is first place. And I think that's a huge thing for the Texas Water Safari, officially recognize those classes and give these like women novice a chance to actually win. And it was really, really moving and neat to be a part of that, to be the first one in the Texas Water Safari history to hold that title. And we got a huge trophy that our names will be on, so that's fun too. I've been in the graduate program at Texas State for 4 years now. So now I can see the finish line of my master's degrees. It's been hard for sure, balancing full time, and I'm doing it and showing up and getting it done. There are a lot of barriers that might make you think you can't or shouldn't, but it'll have taken me 4.5 years, 5 years, and that's 5 years that have passed that, I wouldn't have had this degree or learned these new things. And your education can't be taken from you. It's something that is yours, and once you have it, it's not going away.